We made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and COMATOSE, a podcast about Red Dwarf. We are on the We Made This Podcast Network and we are on Series 8 of Red Dwarf. We've actually got quite far considering how much I tangent. My name is Mark Adams and I am your host for today, and we're looking at Season 8, Episode 7, Pete Part 2. But I am not alone. With me on this somewhat unpleasant journey through Series 8 is Kurt North. Hello, Kurt.
Sorry.
What?
It's the last time on Red Dwarf on this episode.
Oh, bye. Good. Also, hello.
I'm on my... I'm having my alcoholic beverages, as I did last week. I've been drinking for a week, and I'm doing all right.
I decided to join you, and I've decided to drink some wine. But there is only two of us drinking.
There is.
But there is a third person with us. Hello, Matt Latham.
Cheers. I'm here with some Severn Trent.
Good. Celebrating
Also, hello.
in style.
Hello.
Hello. It's been a week since I've last seen you.
It's been a week.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Fabe.
Should we get on with it?
Yeah.
Pete Part 2 was broadcast in the UK on the 1st of April, 1999. It was written by Doug Naylor and directed by Ed Bye. Classic lineup there. And from my memory, we did have the stuff like Bum Bum with Holly at the start of Series 1's episodes, but this is the first time we've had a proper American style previously on Red Dwarf. And what do we think about that?
Previously on Red Dwarf. Sorry, I just wanted to go. Previously
On
on
last.
Red Dwarf.
Right, so when someone says previously on, what would you say immediately after that?
Last.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
For me, it's previously on X-Men. And that says a lot about our different ages. Because genuinely the first time I saw it previously was on the X-Men cartoon.
Well, X-Files, Chris Carter on X-Files, you said last time on the X-Files. So there wasn't a previously.
One of the more creative ways I've always seen those is how Glee used to do it, because I think it was a character saying, "Oh my God, so-and-so did this, there was this, and this is what you missed on Glee." I'm not going to go down the Glee tangent, the whole that is Glee, but I've always kind of liked how they did that, because it was felt kind of unique and kind of fitted in with the style. So
Yeah.
I've heard they've got a character called Kurt in Glee.
Yeah, the cute little gay boy was called Kurt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But yeah, there was a previously, which is something we don't see very often on Red Dwarf, and certainly not in this style. Yeah, why did they do that? That music was cack, wasn't it?
Thing is though, when you started doing that, I thought you were doing the Star Wars Cantina music.
We had, at our cinema, when Star Wars came back, we had someone come in and do that music all night.
Do you work in a cinema?
I was going to say,
work in a
you
cinema.
don't bring that up that often.
And I work in a culture and art, similar to our good friend Carl.
You've
Yeah,
been
we
telling
work
me
in a
that
culture
I've
and
got
art.
a cat next.
Well, you never know. Yeah, me and
We've
Carl
been
work
doing
in
this a
similar
long
environments.
fucking time.
We have. Whose idea was to do this? Like, whose idea was it?
Yes.
Don't tell me,
Christ.
I'll just turn up.
Right, so yeah, theme. Bum, 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 bum. And then it opens with more from the previous episode. So it kind of... I was like, but what? Anyway.
Do you think
So,
they didn't have enough material by any chance?
Maybe. I mean, do you want to say anything about this match?
Again, as I alluded to last week, which
Which was all cut out.
yeah, which is it all cut out in the half an hour episode that you had last week, because all the stuff that was cut out.
Yeah. So what do you think of this episode then, Matt?
Fuck off.
I enjoyed that immensely. So what did you think to this episode then, Matt?
I only agreed to do this so I can talk about only the good, so fuck off, both of you. I had to do these two. Again, I'm not. Again, apart from perhaps the odd gags and stuff, it's still kind of, for me.
Well, let's put this into context, right? So, to quote the Ganymede and Titan recent thing that they did, and even over the years, Pete 2, Part 2 has always been bottom of the list.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, when they've always done their kind of
best ofs, top
ranking every episode.
50, 70, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I probably wouldn't have put that there. I think probably Crikey TV and some of the Back in the Red would be my bottom of the list.
They're definitely down the bottom. And some, obviously, we don't want to colour your expectations on later series. There is now a new bottom, which is actually a later Dave episode.
Right, okay.
Which we'll come to eventually. But yeah, Pete 2 is regarded generally in the fandom as one of the worst episodes of Red Dwarf.
And, there was quite a lot of people who engaged with us saying they didn't agree when we said that Body Swap was diabolical. And similarly, when we were quite positive about Meltdown, people kind of disagreed with that. Do you think it's generally that nobody fucking likes Pete Part 2?
I think it's generally that nobody likes Pete Part 2. I part of me wanted to kind of watch the feature-length one, but I don't know what difference that would make because I ended up watching both of them back-to-back. With this and the previous one. Again, I think it's a case that, again, there are moments of kind of like funny like one-liners which kind of stick out to me that I remember. But then it's generally, I think, because it's kind of carrying on that ongoing story. It's trying to carry on jokes that were set up a week ago, and it feels quite detached rather than it's the central bit. Is kind of its own key thing with that, we like Pete the dinosaur, but I don't know. It's just, I think the fact that it keeps going back to the gag of them walking into the office again. I don't think it works for a second episode in a row. I
don't know because it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and for me, the diarrhea and the tidal wave is hilarious. So the fact that it starts off with just them having that. Having the basketball game because of the truth serum, then it's the virality drug, then it's the next thing, then it's a dinosaur in a thing, then there's a tidal wave. It's just one thing after another that crescendos.
Yeah,
I think I disagree as well. Sorry, Matt. I really like that gag, but I can see why you wouldn't. But I think it works really well.
And what's fascinating as well is that, Mark, you probably know better than me because you brought this to my attention. Obviously, I listened to Swirly Thing Alert a little bit. I haven't listened to the finale of it yet. I've listened to most of it on my way home from a drinking session the other night.
Good.
After watching Liverpool diabolically go out of the Champions League. But the one thing that I've noted on here is that this and last week's episode were aired on the same day. It looks like it was aired on the 7th of March. So I don't know if would that have had an effect. For us, it has been a week back to back, but it seems the Americans got it all in the same night.
Yeah, well, they got it on a
was it the marathon?
Drive. Yeah, on a marathon, on a pledge drive. So they got all of the episodes in one, and they had got them earlier and hadn't clocked. I don't think anyone clocked really because there was less internetery. But they got them all to get played in one night in a marathon. And I didn't know about that at the time. I assume neither of you knew about that at the time either.
No.
Not until this week I didn't know about it.
Until air quotes last week when you mentioned it.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. I've had the full week since the last episode we recorded to process that news that the US had this before us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're not recording the 8th episode later on this evening either, are we?
No, we're doing that next week.
Yeah, we are.
Only the good die young.
Yes, it recaps that the wand devolved Pete the Sparrow into a T-Rex and that Pete eats Birdman. Everyone flees and Pete pursues.
The Birdman plays in the Jurassic Park style with the guy in the toilet.
Yes.
In Jurassic Park.
Yes.
And that's the... Pete, he's eaten me. He's never eaten me before.
Do you know what? If I'd had my entire body bitten off my feet when I'd been eaten, I think I'd be a bit more fucking traumatized than that.
Or when he gets sneezed on. I think sneezed on. I'd rather be eaten than sneezed on.
I mean, that is quite minging. The crew hide and Pete scouts the area. Crichton distracts him and throws the time wand to Bob. Pete eats Bob. The distraction allows further fleeing.
That felt really, really flat.
Why did he throw the fucking time wand to Bob? I don't get it.
I don't get it. And it felt really flat as well after it. It's kind of like there's no music on it. It just feels really, really flat. And it feels like it's just been thrown in there and edited badly. That's the only way I can describe it. It just feels like it wasn't there originally or something, because it just feels like no attention's being paid to it.
Narratively, it's like, we need to get everyone unfrozen. How can we get everyone unfrozen? And and it's Bob accidentally using the time one. See, that would, I think, probably be better use of if the cat.
Well, Bob doesn't accidentally use the time one, though, does he? Actually does use it.
No, but I don't think he meant to unfreeze everyone. I think he meant to aim and shoot someone, shoot at Pete rather than unfreeze the entire ship.
Oh, right, yes, yeah.
But
okay,
yeah, I think that gag probably would have been better given to, like, I don't know, the cat or something. Oh, if the cat probably I could probably buy the cat accidentally unfreezing everyone rather than perhaps Bob. But
Bob's been a really odd character. He's been incredibly capable in certain circumstances and completely inept in others, and completely inconsistent that way. You know, some of the supplies that he's got for Lister throughout the series has been great. And then he's just really, really fucking dumb for no reason. And it's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm noticing it more because it's a relatively new character in inverted commas compared to the fact that they do that with Lister and Cat all the time as well.
But I think it's more of a Cat thing to have done, if the cat thought he did something good and realised, no, you just unfreezed everyone else.
So yeah, you're right. Bob is inside Pete's stomach intact, and Lister closes a big metal door, but Pete attacks it immediately, doing heavy damage. They discuss how they can retrieve the time wands. Rimmer and Holly think that they're finished. Kachansky suggests that they get Pete to eat some roughage so that he shits it out sooner.
You're going right through this episode without allowing any of us to talk about any of it.
I don't really. It's boring.
Right. So, do you not get the long and short answer from Holly for a start off? You're finished. It's like, and then Kat goes, "What was the short answer?" Bye. Which is brilliant.
Again, Holly getting the best lines, and he got the best lines in the last episode as well.
And the animatronic dinosaur. When it's kind of like sort of doing its roars and stuff like that, it looks really, really effective.
It does. It's great. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. Sorry, but yeah, he just was like, "Are we going to be finished in 5 minutes?"
Sorry, I am rushing through this a little bit. They need to get the roughage thing sorted before the crew come out of the time frozen state. Oh dear.
I've got 2 sentences on my notes for this episode.
I haven't got any.
Hey, I've only got 1 handwritten note for next episode as well, so it's like gradually then. The one is noting that I think I do think that there's, and I've always kind of felt this, particularly with the cat, in that there's a lot of imbalance in terms of the ensemble of the cast. So
well, we never. I mentioned this earlier in the season. We never see where Kat actually sleeps.
Yeah,
even though it's like, I know what you. Obviously, we never saw that in Red Dwarf. But who's he sharing a cell with?
Yeah, the cat's just has a scene in a line in an episode, more or less. He doesn't really, and he's often, and I still think that the cat often gets overlooked quite a lot. Very unfairly, I think.
You're absolutely right.
Unfairly, but he hardly gets anything to do. I think he just kind of he's there. He's just there to look pretty and go wah.
Go what? Sorry.
Go wah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's what Mark does. That's why we take Mark out.
Yeah.
He looks pretty and goes wah.
Yeah.
Well. Yeah.
But I do quite like the fact that I think the most intelligent and probably practical idea comes from Kachansky. So the idea of the roughage to try and basically shit Bob out comes from Kachansky, and it's like, whereas like without Kachansky, it probably would have taken them a bit longer to do that, or kind of reverted to Crichton.
Yeah, it's consistent, isn't it?
Eventually,
that they do that.
Yeah, so I do. Yeah, and I do think it's them trying to work out how Kachansky would fit in the ensemble with an added Rimmer in it, because we don't really have that opportunity that much. I don't think in this series, and because of the Canaries aspect of it. So I do kind of appreciate, and this is me trying to kind of grasp some semblance of interest from this episode, in that Kachansky's characterization in this bit feels...
It's interesting, like, I think we'll talk about this shortly, but the your aversion to the Canaries, but without the Canaries, we wouldn't have the best episode in this series. You wouldn't have had Cassandra. And it's the best episode of this series. Well, in my eyes, it is.
It is, yeah, but then they kind of not use them. So you have like you had the thing last week with People Part 1 where they find the time wand, but that's just they could have done that with any episode of Red Dwarf. The Cassandra kind of setup, I think, felt like it was better because they was forced to do it because of Lister thinking there was the choir, was the prison choir. And getting into that position. And I think Crouch TV, the premise of the episode kind of works because of the people that they are with, because of the Canaries, and what they do to Crichton. And that episode comes from that. Whereas, like, then they kind of just forget they kind of exist and don't really... apart from just getting Rimmer and Lister share a cell again. I don't know. There's something about that just feels a bit wasted, or it's either wasted or just not capitalised on much.
And we've lost the Canaries really by this point, haven't we? So
yeah, it's a good point because they only get used for that, don't they? So I can see that point. I suppose it's just a way of getting them off the ship.
Back to Bob in Pete's stomach, and he retrieves the wand, but unfortunately he accidentally activates it, and the frozen state ends. The group prepare a giant cow vindaloo. Rimmer is sceptical. Pete breaks through and immediately eats it.
The only other note that I've got is the fake cow.
I like the fake cow.
Yeah. I think I liked the bowl that said Dino on it in this scene as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's clutching at straws, isn't it? But I still like it.
Yeah. And you know, cat in a forklift is beautiful as well. Where did he learn how to use a forklift?
I used to drive a forklift when I was younger.
I love this, that you used to be a forklift driver.
Well, I didn't. That's the point. So basically,
joyriding forklifts.
I was working as you were like this as well, as a vending machine repairman. Right?
Brilliant.
Yeah, so no, I was basically there. It was the first job outside. Well, I did direct inquiries. So what is now 118, I was 192 at that point. Right. So I did that for a few weeks. Then I got a job in a factory, and the person who got me the job was actually not. It was a contractor. So they used to like sort of do up all the catering for different factories, and I was working in the factory at the time. And they said that I had to, so the vending machine, I had to fill all the vending machines up and then provide them with food on a night time, but burger and chips and stuff. And they then had another contract where seat belts were actually exploding, so they had to like spray these trays with anti-static spray and actually wipe them all down. So on a Sunday, I probably made more money then than I do now, because it was on like quadruple time. It was a Saturday morning, 6 till 12, and it was just like literally just go and do this because money was being thrown at it because someone had got really seriously hurt. So we didn't touch any of the seatbelts. We were just treating the trays. And so it was loads of money. It was that, and unfortunately, the other thing I made a bit of money on, which is an unfortunate one, was foot and mouth. It's around the same time. But they had a forklift truck in there. We ended up driving it around.
So you weren't a forklift driver?
So I wasn't
you were just a bad person who stole a forklift?
Yeah, just doing Formula 1 in forklifts, yeah.
joyriding forklifts, who I think I saw who I think probably headlined Glastonbury at some point.
Yeah, along with
Joyriding
Crichton's Naked Arm.
Yeah.
I hate those. They're crap.
No, they're a good band.
Third album's better than the second, I think.
Yeah.
Sigh.
They kind of sold out in the fourth, didn't they?
Like you too.
Yeah, I don't think dubstep reggae was the right thing.
No.
Just stop. So while Pete is eating the curry,
We can talk about football.
no. While Pete is eating the curry, Lister speculates that he would like a poppadom and some lager. Pete's eyes flare and he runs away through a wall. They are then captured at gunpoint by the guards.
Sound effects at the moment. I don't know why I'm doing that either.
Good.
Maybe it's McCarlin.
Maybe. I can't believe you're drinking Carling. It's like the worst lager.
Well, this is the thing, and this is the story. I don't know why we're talking stories today. In our shopping, randomly about 4 months ago, a full crate of Carling appeared, and I didn't order it. So I'm not going to look at that and go, by the way, supermarket chain, you've sent me 24 cans of Carling, am I?
I'd have given it to a food bank.
So
These are ending up more interesting than the conversation about the episode themselves.
So I've had them in my fridge for donkeys, and I thought, you know what? I've got them sitting here. I'll have a few of them tonight, and and maybe the next few, maybe back to Earth. I'm going to just have a full drinking session.
Maybe we should get hammered during Back to Earth. Yeah.
Don't get hammered because God forbid who's going to be in charge of that one.
I do drunk
You
watches
said
with X-Cast.
lol.
Because I've had a drink. I do drinking watches with X-Cast people. So
We could do that. Anyway, moving on. They march to Hollister's office and he's pissed off that they've broken the no pets rule. He goes through the... that is a good gag.
Yeah.
He goes through the damage that Pete has done. He's eaten and drunk all of Hollister's favourite food. And
Oh, sorry. This is just a complete random thought that I remember having at the time that suddenly just come back to me. The nanobots have rebuilt. I don't know whether this has been brought up. The nanobots have brought back everyone. Isn't there another version of Lister in stasis? Because
No, because the same as Kachansky, they didn't redesign Kachansky either.
no.
So
Right.
they the nanobots are sentient enough to know what to do. The question I have is next week is why did they rebuild Talia? But that's a question for next week, folks.
Okay. The only reason to say it is because the now pets rule. I'm like, oh yeah, because Lister broke it before with Frankenstein.
Yeah, exactly.
So where is Frankenstein? Why
Dead.
Yeah, didn't.
Well, dead.
Oh.
Didn't they kill her?
Well, nanobots could.
Well, maybe Frankenstein is still about.
They died, but they're not dead now. And you're
Good.
a robot.
Good. Good.
Check that chair for me, please.
Deep into the ground. See, that's what I mean. Great moments. Great moments.
That scene was crap. I thought it was awful.
Amazing.
We covered that on previous episodes.
Ambivalence.
So the damage that he has done is that he's eaten and drunk all of Hollister's favourite food and burped on a platoon, injuring them. And then he puked on some guards, injuring them. And then he shat on a battalion that included Hollister.
He didn't.
He did. He shat on Hollister.
Do you know what happens to a dinosaur that has blah blah blah, has blah blah blah, and blah blah blah?
He didn't.
He didn't.
Diarrhea tidal wave.
A tidal wave, 15 feet high.
Rank.
And you know what? It's to be fair, I do quite like how Hollister, the dialogue for Hollister kind of builds up to. And do you know what happened to the platoon that was sneaking
Around the
behind the
beast?
dinosaur? After it has a blah blah, a blah blah, and a blah blah. It didn't.
And what do they have? It's lollipops, ice pops, doesn't it? It has Coca-Cola.
Yeah. After having a massive cabin.
Well, it's a fantastic moment. It really is.
It is.
I love it. I love it.
The build-up is fantastic.
And it's all
Mac
McDonald. It's just amazing.
And I really can't do it justice with my narrative on it, so I didn't try.
You didn't?
No. A very cross Hollister hands Lister the time wands and says he has to bring back the sparrow. And he then adds that Bob landed on his head and is in repairs.
Yeah.
Hollister then threatens that they're finished if he ever sees them in his office again. And then Lister used the time wand on him.
See you in 10 minutes. See you in 10 minutes. People don't like that scene, and I absolutely think it's amazing. And I think it's amazing.
That's brilliant.
Because you can totally tell, again, it's that what we had a conversation about last week with the actors with the time wand, where it's totally acted out as almost like more of a play. But because McDonald's delivery is so good, and you can almost see him breaking, it makes it funnier. Can you just go, see you in 10 minutes?
Yeah.
See you in 10 minutes.
Well, I think because like about after like the fourth or fifth time, he seems to get bored with doing the same kind of motion, so he starts his angle changes slightly,
and he's got like, more of a wry smile about him when he says it, and
he looks like he's about to break. He's about to break, isn't he?
I think that's okay because he was kind of taking the piss, whereas the other guy was so fucking earnest and didn't work. It felt like he was, this is my moment. It's my
perfect moment with you.
Oh, fuck's sake. What was her name?
Martine
McCutcheon. Crichton and Kachansky are being escorted back and are discussing their punishments. Crichton has got chores and feels like he's been rewarded rather than punished.
Yeah, I like that.
It's an old school gag, isn't it? An old school Crichton gag.
But he kind of fits in with the kind of like the situation they're in, and I think there isn't a lot of Crichton in these two, so it's like you get what you get with them and stuff, and again, like Robert Llewellyn always seems to do well. He's good at pretty much most stuff he does, but whenever like Crichton is like happy and ecstatic, like, and he does that kind of like head shake that he does, like head shake when he's really excited. Yeah, it's just never get tired of that.
Back in their quarters, Rimmer and Lister discuss how Hollister has called Rimmer an imbecile in a report. Rimmer bitches about him, not realising that he's entered behind them.
That's a trope that I really do not like in comedy.
It's overdone, isn't it?
Yeah, he goes like, "Oh, they're standing right behind me, isn't he?" I'm pretty sure. Oh, I was watching something with that like days ago.
Was it?
I can't remember what it was.
Really mean it, 'cause mine is a big fat fucking bitch. That's when that's done well.
See, yeah, because it's just the way it happens, where he turns around and goes, "Fuck." Yeah, he doesn't even bother with the kind of she's standing right behind me, isn't he? He just turns around and goes, which is a good kind of twist on it. But it's lazy, it's cheap, it's.
I mean, it is, and I agree. I'm not arguing it, but it does happen. I've seen it happen on multiple occasions where some not necessarily that bad, but kind of like going, "Shut the fuck up! He's right behind you." You know what I mean? When it's like you get that look when someone's like having a rant. It's like, oh, and it's a horrible feeling when you know it. You know what I mean? Because you can't do what Lister's doing. Not him there. You don't do that. You just feel like a weight is on your chest, going, "Fucking hell, this is going to be bad." You know what I mean? That's so. But anyway,
when he realises he fakes insanity from a potato virus, Hollister hands them the time wand that they forgot and admonishes them. Rimmer is, of course, mortified. Kachansky is poking a broom under her bed for a mouse. Crichton tells her it's not a mouse, it's Archie. And Archie is his penis that has escaped.
This scene, and I'm glad it did not happen, was supposed to be in Cassandra.
Right, okay.
It was kind of decided, obviously they were looking to thread it out. I don't know the full detail, but basically they were looking for extra scenes into this episode that then they took this one out of Cassandra and put it in here. So I'm glad they did that, because it would have made Cassandra a worse episode. The bit when it's like some men, you've got no control over their penis. That's not a bad joke, but it goes on too long.
It's massively over-egged, and it's so obvious as well. It's very silly. And we talked quite extensively about how Crichton was almost like an asexual icon earlier in Red Dwarf, and this just felt wrong to me.
Yeah, I think part of it, I think, kind of matches with like the kind of not really a subplot or even a character arc, or it's more like a trait where he's always often been wondering what it's like to be human. Like to be human, and also he's also experienced having a penis in DNA.
Yeah, he had a double Polaroid.
So, yeah,
which apparently was like a proper Polaroid.
Yep. Yep.
Crichton having a kind of a artificial penis on paper sounds like it's something that he probably would do, and like the faux pas that of him, like in a different episode in different circumstances. If it was perhaps on Starbug, where like if this episode was on Starbug when it's just like the 4 or 5 of them going, well, in my mind, well, to understand humanity, I made myself a penis, man. Because what? Just so I can feel more human, because and all that kind of stuff. That'll probably make more sense. And probably
and like you say, I was going to say not quite what you're saying, slightly different to what you're saying, in that. Well, why do you even want one? And I was thinking more of a case of him trying to find his identity. So it's not necessarily being human, but trying to find his identity and having issues with that. And I think that, a newer show would probably go down that route. But
yeah,
what I mean?
Definitely, definitely. With I think with particularly with discourse and like kind of like societal kind of viewpoints happening with gender and sex and the fluidity of that and everything. There's possibly a kind of story that could have been easily told or for exploration of that, which has happened about 24 years, a bit too early, but the show doesn't have
the maturity to do that.
Yeah, the maturity. And to be fair, it is more or less just a knob gag more than an excuse to explore that. Than anything, so it is just like a sending knob gag.
But I do love a knob gag. I just didn't like this particular knob gag. I'll quickly finish what happens. He made a penis so that he can be more of a man, and Archie pelts around the room, causing some damage. They try and capture him with a box, but he escapes with the box on top of him. Before they can chase after him, they get delivered their next Canary mission, capturing Pete, who is still on the loose.
So, sorry, I am a little bit ahead of you just on my YouTube video of it. I'm just so crazy with the little arms.
Right. Okay, that was a good gag. For fuck's sake.
It's a gag that's been... So it's been used so many times, though, in shows since I've watched this episode back in the day. It's like, the T-Rex and the little arms is just like a recurring gag everyone uses.
What's the T-Rex's least favourite nursery rhyme? If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Oh.
Oh, dear. But I think it's the way Kill Crazy... I know I've jumped ahead, I apologise, but it's the way that Kill Crazy...
Your episodes are supposed to be chaotic, not mine.
It's like it's got little arms, isn't it? It's more his delivery of it more than anything else.
Yeah.
And then it's the way the listener, remember, then goes, that's probably why he's so grumpy all the time.
Well, you've covered my next notes. They're in a lift, and Kachansky suggests prepping properly. Blah,
I tell you what,
blah,
it's an
blah.
interesting lift, though, isn't it?
Fighting.
Because it's a horizontal lift. It's like a tube. It's more of a tube than a thing. It doesn't go up; it goes across.
So is it
It's more like a metro.
Yeah. I called it a lift because it looked like a lift, but you're absolutely right.
It's what they're called. What they're called? Not a lift.
Monorail.
Monorail.
Is it a carriage? What? Mark, I'm assuming you've been to Bridge North. What are they called?
I've been to Bridge North. Shit train thing.
What are they called?
Like lifty, weird thing.
Lift him at lick face.
Yeah,
lift him at lick face.
Like a
lift him at lick face.
Train lift. But yes, I have been on that thing in Bridge North.
Carriage cars.
We're going to have to research that and put it on the social media now. That's a job for me, and you've caused that. Fuck's sake.
I mean, I could just go I could give you another story about when I bought the Simpsons album. You know, the one with
in deep trouble?
Springfield Soul Stew. We've got on bass. That there was a girl in Our Price who all I ever did.
Oh my God! We've descended into an episode of Big Disc.
There was a girl in Our Price who I was like infatuated with back in the day.
Wow.
And I used to go in there, like, it was in the middle of the city, so I had to, like, go into town every time, so buy an album. I always used to make sure it was Saturday afternoon when she was there. And I eventually got the courage to ask her out on a date. So when did that album come out? When that 96? It would have been around 96, wasn't it? And I bought this album, right?
Brilliant.
Springfield album. And I was like, and she's talking for about 10, 15 minutes. I was like, oh, I'm in here. You know, I've been trying to do this for a year, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, yeah, the Simpsons, love the Simpsons, blah, blah, blah. I've been thinking about that. I says, oh, right, okay, what? Do you want to go out at some time and, you know, maybe you could listen to it and stuff? She went, oh, well, I'm actually just about to move abroad. And she was going abroad the week later. So my heart was broken.
Fuck.
I know.
That is sad.
Pretty sad.
That is sad. If you'd been braver, maybe she wouldn't have moved abroad.
Exactly, yeah. That was my Our Price story.
The canary spread out, and suddenly the cat is in incredible pain. He collapses and says something is inside him and wants to get out. His chest looks like the scene from Aliens, but it's Archie. And I don't think I've been more disappointed with seeing something on the credits and then what it actually turns out to be in the entirety of Red Dwarf when it came to that. I thought it was going to be something fun, something interesting, something cool, and it was...
Something plot relevant.
Yes, and it was a shit gag about a mechanical penis. Kill Crazy and Baxter ambush Lister and say they want to fight Pete, and then they sabotage the Time Wand. They attack Rimmer and Lister physically, but it doesn't do any damage. Crichton explains that they've put their bodies in a different time stream with the wand. Kill Crazy and Baxter Scarper. What did you think about this scene when it came to how it was kind of done choreograph-wise? I thought it was okay.
I'm pretty sure that you've Mark, as someone who has seen one or two wrestling matches.
Yes.
You've probably seen better selling.
Yes.
Yeah. Or even like, no, that's not the word, isn't it? Like, stiffness is the other way, isn't it?
If you're stiff, it means that your fake punches hurt.
So so the fake punches that the actors had to try to do on Chris Barry and Craig Charles, they weren't.
They were okay. They weren't good, but they could have been worse. They could have missed or whatever. But yeah, I think that's actually a very valid point. Some wrestling training, some professional wrestling training would have helped the actors when it came to throwing worked punches.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, or at least to make them, because I think, again, you'll know more about this than I do. But like, there's probably a technique to try and sell that you've not been hurt, or so when you're trying to sell someone being stronger than someone throwing a punch, and like you like the punch in the stomach and nothing happens, there's a proper technique to that.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's more to do with the working of the strikes than it is to do with the selling on these sort of things. Okay. Simply put, if you throw a fist and then you open your palm at the very last moment and hit someone in the neck rather than the side of the jaw, it looks fucking devastating. And it's like hitting yourself in the side of the neck really lightly. And a good worked punch looks like death and is soft as shit. And that isn't what they did here. But I still think it was okay.
I DDT'd my brother on a stone.
That wasn't worked though, was it? You just bounced his head off a fucking stone.
I did, yeah. I also broke his elbow doing a suplex.
That wasn't worked, was it? Because you didn't know what you were fucking doing.
And I also had a cage match in the infant school because they had a Harris fencing around it, so we decided to have a tag team cage match with me and my brother and my best mate and his younger brother who was the same age. Those were the days.
No training.
No training. So good.
I also switching music. A friend of mine with no training.
I was 12 years old, Mark. You know what I mean? 12, 13 years old.
It always says don't try this at home on the wrestles. And switching music is one of the very few moves I can actually do. That and a short arm STO and a rolling ankle lock.
You can take a wallop on the chest.
What?
You can take a wallop on the chest, can't you?
I did that this morning. How did you know someone from Grindr came over? I've never heard it called a wallet before.
Someone's overconfident, Kurt.
I'm going to move on from this.
Again, I think this is more of a testament of the quality of Pete Part 2 that we're
talking about
the tangents that were going
We're
on.
talking about fucking wrestling work punches and me having sex on Grindr. Great. My
favourite move was the Razor's Edge, by the way, just so you know. The Razor's Edge was a great move.
It was. It very much was. Rimmer and Lister are marched to Hollister's office, and he's upset with them for losing the time ones. Suddenly, the time zone catches up with them, and they get their kicking that they had in the previous scene, and they dramatically get punched all over the place. And whilst kind of filler and unnecessary to the plot, but I did enjoy the spectacular throwing themselves all over the set stuff. That was fun.
It was, and it's something that Series 8 seems to do a lot, isn't it? They're doing a lot more slapstick, over the top stuff. You know, it's not grounded in reality as such, but it's still fun. You know, but it's just not. It's not quite what Red Dwarf is. It's kind of it's like I'm saying that 99 slapstick is kind of taken over here for some reason.
I was looking into this. I was pretty much looking into this like earlier today about the writing credits, and from only good. Is it from this one? From this one onwards, Doug Naylor becomes the sole writer for everything post this, as well as the sole director.
It was Paul Alexander last week, wasn't it? He was in. I didn't mention that last week, but yeah, he did. He really helped record write last week.
Paul Alexander has also kind of helped write this as well. I mean, have you? Again, I've not been had a chance to listen to what you've been talking about in the first 5 episodes, but have you had the conversation about the influence of Doug Naylor on the scripts and the guest writers and the influence? Because I think there's something very similar for Series 7. So I'm wondering whether some of the issues that we might have with, or some of the weird things that are happening might be to do with the fact that Doug Naylor's not the sole control writer. But then again, would he have final say?
You'd have thought he'd be the auteur of it, though, wouldn't you? You'd have thought he'd have ultimate control.
Yeah. So and thinking about it, I'm just wondering whether things like it's slightly more slapstick, and whether it's kind of other people, like the other writers, having their own skin.
The more I think about this show post 6, the more I think I've had this discussion before, but the more I feel in similar with Mark Frost and David Lynch in Twin Peaks, that they're a duo. It's like your Elton Johns and Bernie. You know what I mean? It's Red Dwarf is at its finest when you've got Rob Grant and Doug Naylor together, because they'll both push and pull each other, and they're both it goes back to the restraining element that Rob Grant might have a specific type of comedy that he does. Doug has a couple, but then together they kind of work themselves out between each other. And then when you've got Doug kind of reaching out, and this is what I kind of alluded to last week, was that Doug never seems to pick a lane. He wants to go, and I know, Matt, we've spoken separately on this, but he wants to go down the dramatic route a lot. You know, we'll see this in Back to Earth in a few episodes' time on the main show, where he wants to use some dramatic elements of and wants to make it like a drama, as a comedy drama rather than just a comedy. But then he'll switch all of a sudden to doing something like this in 8, or the first few episodes of Red Dwarf 10, where it becomes more static Red Dwarf, and it just never seems to fluctuate. And it feels to me that Rob Grant is the foundation. That's the way it just feels that way for me overall. And I don't know if you'll ever get that back without Rob and Doug finally nail the hatchet, but that's not going to happen. So
they've not buried the hatchet. They've come to an agreement so they can both make money. They're not going to work together, mate.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That they're not going to bury the hatchet. That's what I'm saying. So unless they ever bury the hatchet, which they're not going to do.
No.
Again, no, there's no spoilers in it. I do think Doug Naylor kind of, particularly with the Dave series 10 onwards, kind of gets back into the sitcom-y aspect of it.
He does, but then he still does Promised Land.
I'm really excited for Promised Land. I think I want something along the lines of Series 7 as a film. And I think that's what I've kind of gleaned is what Promised Land is like. So I'm really excited for Promised Land. Really excited. More than the rest of it, actually. Have I said something really naive? Don't bite your fist, Matthew.
No, it's not that. It's that I've not watched Promised Land since I first saw it, but I've still got quite strong, generally good opinions on it. There's just like a lot of interesting observations that can be made that.
I am looking forward to Promised Land purely because of that, because I kind of know what you're going to talk about.
Shall we move back on to Pete Part 2?
Oh, we're talking about Pete Part 2. Sorry, I didn't realise.
Yeah.
We're talking about...
and then Queeg shows up.
Yeah, well, Queeg does show up. But we were talking about the slapstick and the violence, and it does feel like they're a little bit blasé about violence in this. There's some horrendous kick-ins, and no one ever even has like a bruise. And I guess that's okay. It's a sitcom, but it was definitely something I noticed. And
it's the bottom effect, isn't it? It's basically trying to be bottom.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's bottom. Yeah.
I remember when we looked at Ticket to Ride, the only thing I disliked about that entire episode was the unpleasant kick-in at the end. And we haven't had that really in the entirety of season 7, other than then. But there is kick-in after kick-in after kick-in in Series 8 with no consequences, no injuries, no nothing. So I think it's a minor thing. It is a sitcom. It is slapstick. But I didn't like that.
With that as well, I think the peak of the kind of slapstick is the fact that they seem to then get thrown all the way down the corridor and land on the far wall, which I think... Which seems to be almost supernatural.
Bill Crazy and Baxter are fucking strong, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's the same as if you think about. I know it's slightly different, but the duck soup, where they do the somersaults into the thing. It's it's that kind of over-egged kind of reactionary thing, which just seems to be like it's a hyper-realistic version of Red Dwarf, which. And whereas if you look at something as succinct as Backwards, which is an amazing fight scene.
True.
Because that is succinct.
True. And there's bruises and injuries in Backwards as well.
Yeah.
But much less of a kick-in than you see repeatedly during season 8.
It's a good kick. I'm trying to say kicking backwards. Again,
good.
Just say it and I'll reverse it in the actual replay.
He won't.
Yeah, it's a.
So Peter's asleep in the cargo bay, and they use the undo setting to get Birdman back. He's confused about being eaten, and you love this bit, Kurt. They do it again, and Peter's a sparrow again, and Birdman gives him some seed. They then smash the time wand.
That was a good idea, wasn't it?
Walking back, they pass a large egg. It starts to crack, and they run back to rebuild the time wand. A tail pops out of the egg, and then they look at the wand, and it's far too damaged. Legs pop out of the egg, and the egg runs off. They chase after it, and it gets into a lift and escapes. They were outwitted by a baby dinosaur. Hollister is having a massage. The lift opens, and out comes the egg. Right, I have an issue here. Why does the lift go directly from prisoner shit to the fucking officer getting a massage? Surely there's a bit more security than that.
Nanobots.
Bad nanobots. Good answer. Moving on. Baby T-Rex licks Hollister. And Hollister
is brilliant.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Those fucking practical effects are so good. And we've seen some ropey as fuck, excluding the tap dance. Blue Midget, I'm not having a bad word, but we've seen some ropey as fuck CG during Series 8. And
like the Blue Midget, yeah.
Not like the Blue Midget. Everything other than the Blue Midget has been ropey. And
Blue Midget, yeah.
Anything other than
Blue Midget, yeah.
And
Blue Midget, yeah.
Just now.
Repetitive jokes are fun.
It's okay. Mark is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder now. So.
No, right. What it is there's actually good practical effects. I'm a huge fan of horror films, and horror CGI is the worst. The absolute worst. It has ruined horror. It is like a slap in the face of all horror. Practical effects that are good are genuinely my favourite thing in all of film. And this dinosaur is great. Absolutely fantastic.
Now, I'm going to ask Matt to slightly close his ears. It's not a spoiler. But on The Last of Us, there is some scenes that has been portrayed, and people were having a go at the CGI, right? And the CGI was real, and the scenery wasn't. And they were having a go at the CGI. And I find it really funny because, and it's still, in some ways, answers the question about how CGI can still feel uncanny because subconsciously you can still feel it, and I think the likes of Marvel at the moment, it's just like that. It's constantly everything's on green screen. It's just like it doesn't feel real. But what was quite funny with that Last of Us example is that they had there's been other examples where they're riding a horse at one point, and if you slow the camera down, you can clearly see it's just like sort of a prop which is just doing up and down on. It's not a horse at all. But the fact that the actual thing they were saying was CGI'd wasn't. It was actually a proper thing, and it was the background. But it still has the same effect because the background was CGI, so it was still causing that effect. Which is why I like Christopher Nolan so much, because everything generally is in his films is as practical as can be.
Like I say, practical effects are great for me, and I do feel, I have a horror podcast, and
do you? What's that podcast about?
It's called Chucky Vision. It's about the Chucky franchise, and the Chucky TV show that we cover on Chucky Vision has lots and lots of practical effects on a shoestring budget, and genuinely, I would much prefer a fight between two practical effect dolls than a CGI fuckfest like a Marvel film, just like you say. But this is great, and the lick is just it's as grim as some of the best nasty moments in Red Dwarf that we've seen in the past, where the kind of gross out shit, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And then Hollister's reaction to the roar, it's just great. This scene is probably the best scene of the entire fucking 2 episodes.
Again, it's like another example of perhaps isolated set pieces. Is that the right term? A comedic set piece or whatever being great, but the overall thing just not being good. It's like it's like me trying to bake a cake. Like, all the ingredients are probably great, but as soon as you mix them in...
Do you not make a cake?
No.
Oh, I do. I love to bake. It's my...
Well, I'm allergic to eggs, so you'll have to make me a cake which doesn't have egg in.
That's not going to happen. All my cakes have got egg in and they're well nice, so I'm not taking eggs out of it. Can you eat, like... There's like a fake egg that does egg but isn't egg.
Is there a fake egg that does egg but isn't egg?
Yeah. Like has all the qualities of egg, but it's made from, I don't know, fucking mushroom or something.
I don't know, but if anyone listening knows of any eggs that aren't eggs but look like eggs, please let us know. On Shipped Eggs and Comatose.
Fuck's sake. Right, moving on. The Rimmer and Lister are marched into Hollister's office. He's suffering from PTSD and cannot speak. He's sending himself to the hole for 12 months.
The hole! But he doesn't say anything.
No. Crap ending.
Yeah, I know I've made the point before, but I think because of the fact that we've been easily distracted with tangents and everything, and we've only recorded an hour and we finished the episode, I think, and part of me is like because of like, we're going through these quite quickly, and I want to go to bed soon. I like to go to bed at a reasonable hour. I do think though that it's a point in quality, whereas like some episodes we've gone 2 hours talking about a half-hour show. The fact that there's
nothing fundamental to talk about.
Yeah.
For me, that's the problem. There's nothing like, even talking about the Archie's the penis. You know what I mean? There's something there which we tried to grasp at, but there's not.
You tried to grasp
the
penis.
Enough.
Get bit gay that, mate. Grasp a
penis.
Bit gay that. Bit gay.
Maybe a bit.
Do you think Grasp for Penis's 4th album was any good?
Crichton's Naked Army. Crichton's
Naked Army. I'd be fine with that. It's just the naked arms, mate. Well, no, actually, if there's a naked army of mechanoids, that wouldn't be nice.
So you'd be happy with a naked army if they covered their arms up?
I'm just completely confused now.
I don't know what we're talking about. Anyway,
Pete Part 2.
Pete Part 2.
I don't envy you the edit on this, Kurt. We're going to end up with 25 minutes because we've talked absolute shite.
But I still think that the fact that we've been easily distracted and tangency and just not really been able to talk in depth as we have done, I think is as a testament. I think it's kind of an example of perhaps why this has been like Ganymede and Titans, like lowest rated episode for years. It's just nothing to it. There's just there's like, okay, that bit's funny, but we have spent like almost 4 times the length of an episode discussing kind of the theory and concepts and themes that episodes have done in the past, the kind of performances and the character developments. It's just non-existent here. Like, it's just non-existent. Yeah. And we've air quotes last week I made the point that like Lister's characterization at the start, where he feels like he's regressed like to like pre-series 1. There's nothing really to grab onto and like it'd be interesting to discuss about, really. And I think we've tried to kind of get some interesting tangents and get some things out, but I do think that we've kind of scraped, and I mean, I'll be fascinated to hear people's reaction to this and the previous episode, because of just how bitty and the conversation's gone. But I think that's a comment on the quality of the episode of Red Dwarf, I think.
And I think what's really fascinating about the whole thing is that the commentary track reflects what you're saying. So they talk about stuff that isn't about this, and they talk about how Christopher Eccleston is the next Doctor coming soon, which very much timestamps it. Yep.
Bloody hell.
So that was when the commentary was recorded. They talk about the Gay Ray episode again. The fact that they wanted an episode about a Gay Ray when in 1988 they brought in Craig Charles as a consultant for whether or not the cat was racist shows their priorities when it comes to minority groups. And I'm not going to get heavy on it, but that pissed me off. And they were still talking about the Gay Ray episode in 2004 like it was a good thing. And it's like, fuck off, guys. You're all brilliant, and I don't think you're prejudiced, but fuck's sake. And the final thing, again, back to gayness, Norman Lovett thought that the word coquettish meant gay. And however, what I will say, when he found out that it wasn't, he wasn't mean or rude or homophobic in any other way, he then said he didn't really know what his sexuality was and that he was everything, which is fine with me, actually. So, it does balance, but there was fuck all on the commentary. I've got nothing to tell you about the episode, just those 3 things.
So it looks like it sounds like the cast were bored rigid as well.
What's fucking incredibly frustrating about this whole thing is an episode of Red Dwarf with a dinosaur should have been the best thing ever. It wasn't.
So you're telling me an episode of TV with that kind of promise didn't fully pay off because it had dinosaurs on a spaceship? I really hope nothing else that would have the opportunity to have dinosaurs on a spaceship will squander that premise either. I mean, God forbid.
Good point. Well made.
Dinosaurs on a spaceship is a great premise, and twice now British TV has fucked it.
Definitely.
Well, I'll just say that I am working on my own personal best of to best to worst at the moment. And
I don't want to do that kind of level of effort. 52 episodes to do best to worst.
74.
Yeah,
74
I
episodes.
can't do 74 episodes, can I?
And this, just based on what I've been talking about today, this is now my 3rd bottom episode.
What's below?
So, Crikey TV and Back to Earth Part 1.
Wow.
Back to Earth Part 1, and that doesn't even have half the questionable stuff in it.
Because this is a bit of a spoiler, but Back to Earth Part 1 has less than Pete does Part 2. It has less. There's nothing happens in it. Physically, nothing happens in it. It is going to be a 20-minute episode. It is that boring. Nothing happens. It's not funny, and nothing happens.
So a little bit of a peek behind the curtains is as much as I love a special, we're probably going to kind of do very few specials in between series now because we want to get to the new content after the Rob Grant and Doug Naylor announcement. We're going to be recording Back to Earth very soon after we record this. And I remember nothing about it other than the disappointment that it wasn't very good after waiting a very long time.
But I think it feels odd, and I know we sometimes don't want to talk ahead of time, but I do think that we now found something interesting to talk about in terms of relation with P2. But I think Back to Earth, I think we're still going to have, I think particularly the third episode, I think we're going to have quite a lot to talk about. I still think there's a lot you can talk about in Back to Earth.
I think that the thing for me with I mean, I know we are jumping ahead here, but the thing for me with Back to Earth, it goes from nothing happening, and each episode gets better. Mm-hmm. So there is and Matt's right, there is things to talk about. There's nothing to talk about in the first episode of Back to Earth, and there's hardly anything to talk about in Pete Part 2. That's the level that Back to Earth Part 1 is at. It's nothing happens.
So I'm going to take a positive from this, and I'm going to announce something. We are going to do something that we haven't done since our first Christmas special for Back to Earth. We're going to have all 5 of us to discuss all 3 episodes of Back to Earth. We're going to have all 5. We're going to have Mark, Kurt, Colin, Matt and Carl, all 5 of us, and we haven't done that since our first Christmas special, and I'm really excited about that, even if Back to Earth isn't very good.
And so Pete Part 2.
Oh yeah, anything else you want to talk about Pete Part 2?
Can we?
I like dinosaurs.
I do.
Can we find anything else to talk about?
No. Right, Kurt, where can people find you on the internet?
Linktree. Find me at rmuldrake, RMULDRAKE. I'm on several podcasts. You can find me all on there. I'm on one with my good friend Matt Latham, and he will talk about that next.
Matt Latham, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter by searching for Piggy Disc related to the music podcast that I do, where I talk to music, blah, 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 blah. I've got a point-and-click adventure game podcast called Ask Us About Loom, which you can find me on Facebook, on Twitter under Ask Us About Loom, blah, blah, blah. Also alluded to by Kurt. By the time this comes out, we'll probably be knee-deep in the second series of the TV show Yellow Jackets, and we'll be talking about it on No Book Club, which I'm really excited about because of the time of recording. It's this Friday. Series 2.
Yay!
I like Yellow Jackets too. I just don't want to be on your podcast and be asked to watch it like you do, because I do that with Chucky. My podcast about Chucky is Chucky Vision, at Chucky Vision on Twitter. And if you're looking for me personally, it's at Mark Adams HC on Twitter and Instagram. My Twitter is vaguely interesting and reasonably updated. My Instagram is basically me talking about my job as a humanist celebrant and really boring if you're not interested in employing me. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Shipwrecked and Comatose. We've only got one more left for Series 8, and that is next week. So we'll see you then.
And it will be more interesting conversation than this one.
It will?
Yes.
And until then...
It didn't.
It did.
A tidal wave?
Yep.
15 foot high?
Yep.
Art changes over time. This might feel weird to say because the art itself doesn't physically change, but if we agree that art tells us something about the world around us, what happens to that art once the world has changed? This is the question we try to answer on Movieversaries, a film podcast on the We Made This network. I'm the host, Bo Nicholson, and in each episode my guests and I celebrate and re-evaluate films on significant anniversaries. We examine films from all over the world through a critical lens to determine if they stand the test of time by exploring their themes, performances, and techniques. This year, our focus is on movies made in years ending in 3. So far, we've covered the avant-garde classic Meshes of the Afternoon from 1943. On the other end of the spectrum, how does the technical marvel Jurassic Park hold up 30 years later? We also delve into other iconic films of their time, such as King Kong from 1933, 8.5 from 1963, and Return of the Jedi from 1983. From European art house to action, comedy, and horror, if a film is celebrating a significant anniversary, we're discussing it. Don't miss out. Subscribe to Movieversaries now, wherever you get your podcasts.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This Podcast network.